I can't go back to you, my friend. Don't even ask, don't play pretend.
The morning sun peeked through the curtains as I stumbled out of bed, feeling the familiar weight of another routine day settling on my shoulders. Emily was already up, her silhouette a shadow against the dim light in the kitchen. The scent of fresh coffee wafted through the house, mingling with the faint aroma of toasted bread. Our 10-year marriage had settled into a predictable rhythm, one that now felt more like a comfortable rut than a dynamic partnership. "Morning," I mumbled, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. "Morning," Emily replied, her voice flat and distracted. She didn't look up from her task, spreading butter on toast with a precision that spoke more of habit than intention. Our 2 children, Lily and Ben, were still upstairs, their laughter echoing faintly through the floorboards. I cherished those sounds, small reminders of joy in our otherwise monotonous existence. I hurried through my morning routine, showering quickly and donning the same suit I wore most days. As I grabbed my briefcase and keys, Emily called after me, "Don't forget to pick up Ben's science project from the store on your way back." "Got it," I replied, already halfway out the door. The drive to work was usually a mindless activity, a daily journey down the main road filled with honking horns and the grumble of engines. But today, for reasons I couldn't quite explain, I decided to take a different route. Maybe it was the desire to escape the congestion, or perhaps some subconscious need for change nudging me away from the norm. I turned down a side street I hadn't traveled in years, a quiet, tree-lined lane that seemed worlds apart from the usual chaos. The calm was a welcome change, and for a moment I felt a rare sense of peace. That peace was shattered when I hit a red light at an unfamiliar intersection. I drummed my fingers on the steering wheel, glancing absently at the cars around me. My gaze landed on an elegant dark blue sedan idling in the next lane. The driver, a man about my age, looked visibly agitated, his eyes darting restlessly. At first, I dismissed it as typical morning stress, but then I noticed movement in the passenger seat. As I leaned forward, my heart began to race. The woman in the passenger seat was painfully familiar. Even in the dim light, her profile, the way her hair fell in soft waves, was unmistakable. "Emily," I whispered to myself, disbelief constricting my throat. She turned her head, and our eyes met for a brief, agonizing second. There was no mistaking it. It was Emily. My Emily. She leaned in closer to the driver, and before I could process what was happening, she kissed him. It wasn't a casual peck, but a deep, intimate kiss that spoke volumes. The light turned green, but I remained frozen, unable to move. The honking of cars behind me jolted me back to reality, and I forced myself to drive forward, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and hurt. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, snapping me out of my daze. I glanced at the screen. Emily's name flashed up. I hesitated, then answered, my voice strained. "Hey," I said, trying to sound normal. "Hey, just checking if you remembered about Ben's project," she said, her tone cheerful and unsuspecting. "Yeah, I remember," I replied, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "Okay, see you tonight," she said, hanging up before I could respond. I drove the rest of the way to work in a fog, the image of Emily kissing that man replaying in my mind. How long had this been going on? Was this a one-time thing, or had our life together been a lie for longer than I cared to imagine? The day passed in a blur. I went through the motions at work, my thoughts consumed by the morning's events. By the time I got home, I felt like a hollow shell, my emotions simmering just beneath the surface. Emily greeted me with a smile, the same smile that had once brought me so much joy. Now it felt like a mockery. "How was your day?" she asked, her voice warm and familiar. "Fine," I lied, unable to meet her eyes. As we sat down to dinner, I watched her interact with our children, the perfect picture of a loving mother. But all I could see was that kiss, a betrayal that had shattered the illusion of our life together. I knew I had to confront her, but the words stuck in my throat. For now, I played my part in the charade, my mind racing with 1,000 questions and a growing sense of dread. That night, as Emily slept beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Our life, once so predictable, had taken an unexpected turn, and I had no idea where it would lead. Sleep eluded me that night, my mind replaying the morning's discovery on an endless loop. Emily lay next to me, her breathing deep and steady, a stark contrast to the turmoil churning within me. I stared at the ceiling, trying to piece together the fragments of our life that now seemed like a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces. The next morning, I went through the motions mechanically. I brewed coffee, poured cereal for the kids, and dressed for work, all while a storm raged inside me. Emily seemed oblivious, humming a soft tune as she packed the children's lunches. As I watched her, I started to notice the signs that had been there all along. The late nights at the office, the sudden need for privacy, the unexplained absences. Each memory was a tiny pinprick, and collectively, they'd formed a painful mosaic of betrayal. "Morning, Dad," Lily said, her bright eyes shining with the innocence of childhood. "Morning, sweetheart," I replied, forcing a smile. "Are you okay, Michael?" Emily asked, her voice laced with concern. I looked at her, the woman I had loved for a decade, and felt a pang of bitterness. How could she feign concern after what I'd seen? "Just tired," I replied curtly, avoiding her gaze. Driving to work, I couldn't shake the image of Emily in that car, kissing the stranger with a familiarity that made my stomach churn. Every red light felt like an eternity, giving me too much time to think, to question everything I thought I knew. At the office, I was a ghost, my colleagues' voices a distant hum. I barely registered their questions, nodding absently as I sank deeper into my thoughts. By lunchtime, I knew I had to talk to someone or risk losing my sanity. I called my best friend, Jack, who had known Emily and me since college. We met at a small cafe near my office, the usual bustle of lunchtime chatter a comforting backdrop to my turmoil. "Hey, Mike, what's up?" Jack greeted me with his usual cheerfulness, but his smile faded when he saw my expression. "You look like hell. What's going on?" I took a deep breath, the words heavy on my tongue. "I saw Emily with another man yesterday. She was kissing him." Jack's eyes widened in shock. "No way. Are you sure?" "I'm sure," I said, my voice breaking. "It was her. She didn't see me, but I saw everything." Jack shook his head, trying to process the news. "Man, I'm so sorry. Have you talked to her about it?" "Not yet. I don't even know where to start. I keep thinking about all the times she was late or distant, and now it all makes sense." Jack leaned forward, his expression serious. "You need to talk to her, Mike. You can't let this fester. It'll eat you alive." I nodded, knowing he was right, but dreading the confrontation that awaited me. The rest of the day passed in a blur, the weight of the impending conversation pressing down on me. That evening, after the kids were in bed, I found Emily in the living room, curled up with a book. She looked up and smiled, but her smile faded when she saw my face. "Michael, what's wrong?" she asked, setting the book aside. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling. "We need to talk, Emily." Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of fear crossing her face. "What about?" "I saw you yesterday, Emily," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I saw you with that man. In the car." She froze, her face draining of color. "Michael, How long has this been going on?" I interrupted, my anger rising. "How long have you been lying to me?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and she looked away. "It's not what you think," she began, but I cut her off again. "Don't lie to me, Emily. I saw you. I saw everything." She took a deep breath, her shoulders sagging in defeat. "A few months," she admitted. "It's been a few months." "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why would you do this?" "I don't know," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I was lonely, and we were drifting apart. I made a mistake, Michael. A terrible mistake. I stared at her, the woman I had trusted with my heart, now a stranger before me. The realization hit me with the force of a tidal wave, washing away the remnants of the life we had built together. I need some time, I said finally, standing up. I need to think. Emily nodded, her face a mask of pain. I understand. As I walked out of the room, I felt the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me, suffocating and relentless. The realization of her infidelity had shattered our world, and I had no idea how to put the pieces back together. Sleep continued to elude me, each night a restless dance between painful memories and grim anticipation. The confrontation with Emily had left me hollow, her tearful admission echoing in my mind. But despite her apologies, I needed more than words. I needed the truth. The following morning, Emily acted as though everything was normal, but I could see the strain in her eyes, the careful way she avoided my gaze. I had to know how deep the betrayal went, and that meant uncovering every hidden facet of her affair. After the kids were asleep and Emily had retired to our bedroom, I waited. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of guilt and determination driving me. Once I was sure she was asleep, I crept into the room and carefully retrieved her phone from the nightstand. I remembered her password. It was our wedding anniversary, a bitter irony. With trembling hands, I unlocked the phone and began to delve into the digital depths of her deception. Her message history was the first place I looked. My breath caught as I saw a thread with a contact labeled simply J. Opening it, I found a string of messages, each one a knife to my heart. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Missing you already, one read, followed by a heart emoji. Another message was more intimate, discussing a dinner they had shared. Last night was amazing, Jay. I wish we could have more time together. The photos were worse. Selfies of them together. Their faces close, their smiles wide and genuine. One picture showed them at a restaurant, Emily's hand resting on Jay's arm. The casual intimacy in those images was devastating. I felt a burning need to know more. I opened her call log and saw numerous calls to and from Jay, their frequency increasing over the past few months. The timestamps painted a damning picture of late-night conversations and clandestine meetings. Determined to leave no stone unturned, I checked her email. There, I found confirmations of hotel reservations and dinner bookings, each one another piece of the puzzle falling into place. The sound of movement from the bedroom made me freeze. I quickly locked the phone and returned it to the nightstand, slipping out of the room just as Emily stirred. The next day, I called Jack again. We met at the same cafe, and this time, my desperation was palpable. Jack, I found everything. Messages, photos, even hotel reservations, I said, my voice raw with emotion. Jack shook his head, his expression a mix of sympathy and anger. Jesus, Mike, this is worse than I thought. What are you going to do? I don't know, I admitted, but I can't let this go on. I have to confront her with what I found. She can't lie her way out of this. That evening after dinner and the kids were settled, I asked Emily to sit with me in the living room. She looked apprehensive, and I could see the fear in her eyes. Emily, I went through your phone. I began, my voice steady but cold. Her eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand to stop her. I saw the messages, the photos, everything. Who is Jay? I demanded. Tears filled her eyes, and she looked away, unable to meet my gaze. He's someone I met at work. It started as a friendship, but it became more. More. I echoed, my voice rising. You call this more? I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I had taken of her messages. Emily buried her face in her hands, sobbing. I'm sorry, Michael. I never meant for it to go this far. How long? I pressed, my anger barely contained. How long has this been going on? 6 months, she whispered, her voice breaking. I was lonely, Michael. We were drifting apart, and Jay was there. He made me feel alive again. I felt a surge of rage. Alive? You think this is an excuse. You think you can just throw away everything we've built because you felt lonely. Emily looked up, her face streaked with tears. I know I've hurt you, and I can't take it back. But I do love you, Michael. I love our family. Love? I scoffed. This isn't love, Emily. This is betrayal. And now, I have to decide what to do with this mess you've made of our lives. As I walked away, leaving her sobbing on the couch, I felt a crushing weight on my shoulders. The truth was out, but it brought no relief, only the painful realization that our life would never be the same again. The confrontation was inevitable. The air in our house had grown thick with tension, each day feeling like a prolonged exhale before the storm. My mind was a turbulent sea, filled with anger, hurt, and a desperate need for answers. I couldn't let it fester any longer. That evening, after the kids were in bed, I found Emily in the kitchen, washing dishes. The normalcy of the scene felt like a mockery. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding as I stepped into the room. Emily, we need to talk, I said, my voice strained. She turned to face me, her eyes wide with apprehension. What is it, Michael? I gestured towards the living room. Let's sit down. We settled on the couch, an awkward distance between us. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, feeling the weight of the confrontation pressing down on me. I can't keep pretending everything is fine. I began, my voice trembling. I need to understand why you did this, why you betrayed me, betrayed us. Emily's eyes filled with tears, and she looked down at her hands. Michael, I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. Just happened. I echoed, my anger bubbling to the surface. You didn't just trip and fall into an affair, Emily. This was a choice, a series of choices. She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I know, and I'm sorry, but you have to understand, I was so unhappy, so stressed, unhappy. I said, my voice rising. Why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you tell me how you were feeling instead of turning to someone else? Emily wiped her tears, her face a mask of pain. I tried, Michael. I really did. But every time I brought it up, you seemed distant, preoccupied. And with the kids and work, it felt like we were just going through the motions. I shook my head, disbelief and anger warring within me. So, instead of trying harder, you decided to have an affair. To lie to me, to our children. She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. Jay was there for me, Michael. He listened. He made me feel alive, like I mattered. I know it was wrong, but I was desperate. Desperate. I scoffed, unable to contain my bitterness. Desperate enough to throw away 10 years of marriage, to risk everything we've built together. Emily's sobs grew louder, her shoulders shaking. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I felt so lost. And he was there. I stood up, unable to sit still any longer. I paced the room, trying to channel my anger into something productive. So, what now, Emily? Do you expect me to just forgive and forget? To pretend this never happened? She shook her head, her face crumpling with grief. No, I don't. I know I shattered your trust, and I don't expect it to be easy. But I love you, Michael. I love our family. I want to fix this, if you'll let me. Fix this. I stopped pacing, turning to face her. How do you propose we fix this, Emily? How do we rebuild something you've torn apart? Emily stood up, taking a tentative step towards me. I don't know, but I want to try. I want to go to counseling, to do whatever it takes to make this right. I looked at her, the woman I had shared my life with, now a stranger to me. The pain in her eyes was real, but so was mine. I took a deep breath, the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me like a physical force. I need time, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I need time to think, to process all of this. I can't just move forward like nothing happened. Emily nodded, tears still streaming down her face. I understand. I'll give you whatever you need. Just, please don't give up on us." I turned away, unable to look at her any longer. "I don't know, Emily. I really don't know." That night, I slept in the guest room, the silence between us a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. As I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, I wondered if time would ever be enough to heal the wounds her betrayal had inflicted. The days following our confrontation were marked by a cold, stifling silence. Emily moved through the house like a ghost, her presence a constant reminder of the betrayal. The strain was palpable, and the atmosphere, once warm and inviting, had turned frigid. Then, one evening, Emily dropped a bombshell that shattered the fragile peace we had managed to maintain. "Michael," she said, her voice trembling but resolute, "I've been talking to a lawyer. We need to discuss our separation." I stared at her, the words hitting me like a physical blow. "A lawyer? You're talking about divorce?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I think it's for the best, for both of us." Anger surged within me. "And what exactly are you expecting from this divorce, Emily?" She took a deep breath, her hands shaking. "I want my share of our assets, and I want joint custody of the children." "Your share?" I repeated, incredulous. "You think you deserve half of everything after what you've done?" "Michael, please," she pleaded. "I know I've made mistakes, but I'm still their mother. I deserve to have a part in their lives." I clenched my fists, trying to keep my anger in check. You deserve to be a part of their lives. But what about the stability they need? What about their future?" Emily's face crumpled, but she stood her ground. "That's why I want joint custody. They need both of us, Michael. I couldn't stand to be in the same room with her anymore. I need to talk to my lawyer," I said, turning away from her. The next day, I called Jack, who recommended a good family lawyer, Samantha. Her office was a stark contrast to the turmoil of my life, its calm and orderliness a brief respite from the chaos. "Samantha, I need your help," I said, desperation evident in my voice. "Emily wants a divorce. She's demanding half of our assets and joint custody of the kids." Samantha nodded, her expression serious. "Let's start by going over your assets and financial situation. We need to ensure that your children's future is protected." We spent hours combing through bank statements, investment portfolios, and property documents. The process was exhausting, but Samantha's calm, methodical approach helped me stay focused. "Michael," she said finally, looking up from the papers, "we have a solid case. Your primary concern is the children, and the court will consider that. As for the assets, we can negotiate, but be prepared for a fight." The legal battle that followed was grueling. Emily's lawyer was aggressive, pushing for a division of assets that I felt was unfair. Each meeting, each negotiation, felt like a tug-of-war, with our children's future hanging in the balance. One particularly tense meeting took place in Samantha's office, with both lawyers and Emily present. The atmosphere was charged, the tension palpable. "Emily deserves half of the marital assets," her lawyer stated firmly. "She sacrificed her career for the family and deserves to be compensated." I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my voice steady. "She also had an affair and betrayed our family. That has to count for something." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't back down. "Michael, I never wanted it to come to this, but we need to move forward. We need to find a way to coexist for the sake of the kids." Samantha intervened, her tone measured and calm. "Let's focus on the children. They need stability. We propose that Michael retains the family home to ensure they have a consistent environment, while Emily receives a fair share of the other assets." The discussion continued, each point contested, each concession hard-won. By the end of the meeting, I felt drained, but Samantha's confidence bolstered me. Outside the office, Emily approached me, her expression a mixture of sorrow and determination. "Michael, I know this is hard, but we have to do what's best for the kids." I looked at her, the woman I had once loved, now a stranger. What's best for the kids is stability, Emily. And I'm going to make sure they get it. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal documents, court appearances, and endless discussions about finances and custody arrangements. Each step felt like a battle, but I was determined to fight for my children's future. One evening, as I was tucking Lily into bed, she looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. "Dad, why isn't Mom at home? Is she mad at me?" A lump formed in my throat, and I forced a smile. "Nope, honey. She's not mad at you. Mom and Dad are having a hard time right now, but we both love you very much." She nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. I kissed her forehead gently and whispered, "Everything will be okay. I promise." As I left her room, I felt the weight of that promise settle on my shoulders. The legal battle was far from over, but I was determined to protect my children and provide them with the stability they needed, no matter the cost. The weeks turned into months, each day a relentless march through the legal and emotional quagmire of the divorce. The weight of it all was crushing, and I often found myself struggling to breathe under the pressure. It was during one of these low points that I met Sarah. I had taken the kids to the park on a Saturday afternoon, hoping the fresh air and their laughter might provide a brief respite from the chaos. While Lily and Ben played on the swings, I sat on a bench, staring blankly at the trees, my mind consumed with worry and fatigue. "Mind if I sit here?" a gentle voice asked. I looked up to see a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. She seemed to radiate a calm that I desperately needed. "Sure," I replied, managing a weak smile in return. She sat down, watching the kids play. "Those your children?" she asked. "Yeah, Lily and Ben," I said, a hint of pride in my voice. "I'm Michael." "Nice to meet you, Michael." "I'm Sarah," she said, extending her hand. I shook it, appreciating the firm but gentle grip. We sat in companionable silence for a while, and then she spoke again. "You look like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Is everything okay?" Her straightforward question caught me off guard. For a moment, I considered brushing it off with a simple, "I'm fine," but something about her made me want to open up. "Not really," I admitted, sighing. "I'm going through a tough divorce. It's been overwhelming." Sarah nodded, her expression sympathetic. "I'm sorry to hear that. Divorce can be incredibly difficult, especially with kids involved." I glanced at her, surprised by her understanding. "You sound like you speak from experience." She smiled sadly. "I do. I went through a divorce a few years ago. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I came out stronger on the other side." "How did you manage?" I asked, genuinely curious. "One day at a time," she said simply, "and with the support of good friends. It helps to have someone to talk to, someone who understands." Our conversation flowed easily after that. Sarah shared her own experiences, offering advice and insight without being intrusive. It was the first time in months that I felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that I wasn't alone in this struggle. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and I met often at the park. Sometimes she joined us for dinner or watched the kids so I could meet with my lawyer. Her presence was a balm to my wounded spirit, and I found myself looking forward to our conversations. One evening, after the kids were in bed, Sarah and I sat on the porch, sipping coffee. The night was cool, the stars twinkling above us. "Michael, I want you to know that I'm here for you," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You don't have to go through this alone." I looked at her, gratitude welling up inside me. "Thank you, Sarah. You've been a lifeline. I don't know how I would have managed without you." She smiled, her eyes shining with kindness. "You're stronger than you think, Michael. You'll get through this, and I'll be here every step of the way." Our bond grew deeper with each passing day. Sarah's unwavering support gave me the strength to face the challenges ahead. She became more than just an ally. She became a crucial part of my life, helping me navigate the turbulent waters of my divorce. One afternoon, as we watched the kids play in the backyard, Sarah turned to me. "You know, you're doing an amazing job with them." They're lucky to have you." I felt a warmth spread through me at her words. "Thanks, Sarah. I just want to give them the stability they need." "And you will," she said confidently. "Just keep doing what you're doing. You're a great father." Her words were a balm to my weary soul. In Sarah, I had found not just a friend, but a beacon of hope and a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was light to be found. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah's presence became a constant in our lives. She was there for the small victories and the inevitable setbacks, her compassion and understanding guiding me through the darkest moments. With her by my side, I began to believe that we could weather the storm and find a new beginning. The legal proceedings dragged on, each day feeling like a relentless assault on my sanity. Every court date was a new battlefield, each filled with tension and uncertainty. Samantha, my lawyer, was a rock, her confidence and expertise providing a much-needed anchor in the storm. "Michael, we have a solid case," she reassured me as we walked into the courthouse for another hearing. "Stay strong. We're getting closer to the truth." Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was charged. Emily sat with her lawyer, a stern-looking man who seemed determined to paint me as the villain. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I was fighting for my children, for their future. The judge, an older woman with a stern expression, called the session to order. "We will continue with the presentation of evidence," she announced. "Ms. Adams, you may proceed." Samantha stood, her presence commanding attention. "Your Honor, we have gathered substantial evidence that demonstrates a pattern of deceit and manipulation by Ms. Emily Johnson. We believe this evidence is crucial in determining the best interests of the children." Emily's lawyer immediately objected. "Your Honor, we request that this evidence be dismissed as irrelevant and prejudicial." The judge looked unimpressed. "Overruled. Ms. Adams, please continue." Samantha nodded and began presenting the evidence we had painstakingly gathered. Bank statements, emails, and text messages painted a damning picture of Emily's actions. Each piece of evidence was a blow, revealing the depth of her deceit. "Your Honor," Samantha said, holding up a series of emails, "these communications between Ms. Johnson and her lover, Jay, not only confirm the affair, but also show a clear intention to manipulate financial assets. This includes discussions about hiding money and planning for a potential divorce long before Mr. Johnson was aware." The judge studied the documents, her expression growing sterner. "Ms. Johnson, do you have any explanation for these communications?" Emily's lawyer stood, clearly flustered. "Your Honor, these emails are being taken out of context. My client was under immense stress and made poor decisions. However, this does not reflect on her ability to be a good mother." Samantha seized the moment. "Your Honor, it is precisely these decisions that reflect her instability and questionable judgment. We must consider what is truly in the best interest of the children." The judge nodded thoughtfully. "We will take a short recess. I need to review this evidence in detail before making any further decisions." As the judge left the room, I turned to Samantha. "Do you think we have a chance?" She placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Michael, the judge is seeing the truth. Stay strong. We're doing everything we can." During the recess, I stepped outside to clear my head. Sarah was waiting for me, her presence a soothing balm. "How's it going in there?" she asked, concern etched on her face. "It's tough," I admitted, leaning against the wall. "But Samantha is doing an amazing job." The judge seems to be seeing through Emily's lies. Sarah smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "I'm not surprised. You've got the truth on your side, Michael. Just keep fighting." Her words bolstered my spirits, and I felt a renewed sense of determination. We returned to the courtroom, ready to face whatever came next. The judge re-entered and called the session back to order. "I've reviewed the evidence presented," she began, her voice firm. "It is clear that there has been significant deceit and manipulation on the part of Ms. Johnson. However, the primary concern of this court is the well-being of the children." Emily's lawyer attempted to argue, but the judge silenced him with a raised hand. "Mr. Thompson, your client has shown a lack of judgment that cannot be ignored. This court will not place the children in an unstable environment." Turning to me, the judge continued, "Mr. Johnson, it is clear that you have acted in the best interests of your children throughout these proceedings. Therefore, I am inclined to rule in favor of your proposed custody arrangement, with Ms. Johnson receiving supervised visitation until further review." I felt a wave of relief wash over me, the tension of the past months easing slightly. Emily's face was a mask of shock and anger, but there was nothing she could do. As we left the courtroom, Samantha smiled at me. "We did it, Michael. Justice prevailed." I nodded, feeling a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "Thank you, Samantha. I couldn't have done this without you." Sarah was waiting outside, her face lighting up when she saw us. "How did it go?" she asked anxiously. "The judge ruled in our favor," I said, unable to keep the smile off my face. She hugged me tightly, her warmth and support a stark contrast to the coldness of the courtroom. "I knew you could do it." That evening, as I sat with my children, I felt a sense of peace for the first time in months. The battle wasn't over, but we had won a significant victory. With Sarah by my side and Samantha's unwavering support, I knew we could face whatever came next. The fight for justice had been long and arduous, but it had shown me the strength I never knew I had. And for the sake of my children, I was ready to keep fighting. The courtroom victory felt like a heavy weight lifting off my shoulders, but it was a cautious relief. The battle for custody and assets had been grueling, each step revealing more of Emily's manipulations. Despite the judge's ruling in my favor, I remained vigilant, wary of what Emily might do next. Life began to settle into a new rhythm. The house felt lighter, as if the oppressive fog had finally started to lift. The children, sensing the shift, seemed happier and more relaxed. Their laughter echoed through the rooms, a sound I had missed desperately. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Sarah standing there, her smile a comforting presence. "Hey, I thought I'd stop by and see how you're doing," she said, holding up a bag of groceries. "And maybe help with dinner." I smiled, feeling the warmth spread through me. "I'd like that. Come on in." As we cooked together, the kitchen filled with the aroma of spices and laughter. Sarah's presence had become a soothing balm, her support unwavering. "You've been amazing through all of this," I said, stirring a pot of pasta. "I don't know how I would have managed without you." Sarah looked up, her eyes shining with kindness. "You're stronger than you think, Michael. You've handled everything with such grace, especially for the kids." I sighed, the weight of the past months still lingering. "I'm just trying to do what's best for them. They deserve stability and happiness." Sarah nodded, her expression serious. "And you're giving them that. But don't forget to take care of yourself too." Her words stayed with me as we sat down to dinner with the kids. Lily and Ben were full of stories about school and friends, their joy infectious. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of normalcy returning. After dinner, as we sat on the porch, Sarah turned to me, her face thoughtful. "Have you thought about what comes next?" I looked out at the darkening sky, the stars beginning to twinkle. "I'm not sure. I know the fight isn't over. Emily is still their mother, and I have to find a way to navigate that." Sarah placed a reassuring hand on mine. "You will. You've come this far, and you'll keep going, and I'll be here, every step of the way." Her support gave me strength. I knew the road ahead would be challenging, but with Sarah by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next. The next few weeks passed in a relative calm. Emily's supervised visits with the children were tense but necessary. I remained wary, always prepared for another challenge. One afternoon, my lawyer, Samantha, called. "Michael, I have some good news," she said, her voice filled with satisfaction. "The judge has finalized the custody arrangement. You've secured full custody with Emily having limited visitation rights. Additionally, the financial settlements are in your favor." Relief flooded through me. Thank you, Samantha. You've been incredible. It's not over yet, Michael, she cautioned. Emily may still try to contest the ruling. Stay vigilant. That evening, I sat down with Lily and Ben to explain the situation. Mommy will be visiting you with supervision for now, I said gently, but you can see her and spend time with her. Lily looked up at me, her eyes wide. Does this mean we're staying here with you, Dad? I nodded, pulling them both into a hug. Yes, it does. We'll be together, and we'll get through this. As I tucked them into bed, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The legal battles had taken a toll, but we had emerged stronger. I was determined to provide a stable and loving environment for my children, despite the challenges that lay ahead. Later, Sarah and I sat on the porch, enjoying the quiet evening. You did it, Michael, she said softly. You've given them a safe place. I smiled, feeling the glimmer of hope. We did it, Sarah. I couldn't have done it without you. She leaned in, her eyes meeting mine. We're a team. And together, we can face anything. As the stars shone above us, I felt a sense of peace. The journey had been arduous, but it had also revealed the strength of our bonds. With Sarah's unwavering support and the love of my children, I knew we could weather any storm. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. And that hope was enough to keep me moving forward, one step at a time. The weeks following the court's final ruling brought a semblance of peace to our lives. With full custody of the children, I focused on providing them with a stable and loving home. Yet, amid the relief, a new challenge emerged: navigating Emily's supervised visits and her desire to reconnect with Lily and Ben. Emily had shown signs of genuine remorse since the ruling. Her demeanor had changed, her once defiant attitude replaced by a quieter, more reflective presence. She seemed determined to repair the damage, but I remained cautious, wary of the impact on our children. One Saturday afternoon, as the kids played in the yard, Emily arrived for her supervised visit. A social worker, Ms. Harris, accompanied her, ensuring the terms of the visitation were upheld. I watched from the kitchen window, my heart a mix of emotions. Emily approached the children tentatively, a soft smile on her face. Hey, Lily. Hi, Ben. Lily looked up, her expression uncertain. Hi, Mom. Ben ran over to her, his excitement evident. Mom, look at this. I built a rocket ship with Dad. Emily knelt down, examining the toy with genuine interest. Wow, Ben, that's amazing. You did a great job. I stepped outside, joining them. Emily, I said, nodding in greeting. Michael, she replied, her voice respectful. Thank you for allowing this. I nodded, watching as she interacted with the children. I want what's best for them. As the visit continued, I observed Emily closely. She seemed sincere, her focus entirely on the children. Ms. Harris took notes, occasionally nodding in approval. Later, as the visit drew to a close, Emily pulled me aside. Michael, I know I have no right to ask for anything after everything that's happened, but I want to be a part of their lives. I want to make things right. I studied her, searching for any hint of deceit. Her eyes, filled with remorse and longing, met mine. Emily, it's going to take time. The kids need stability, and I can't risk them being hurt again. I understand, she said, her voice trembling. I'll do whatever it takes. I just want a chance to show them that I can be better. I sighed, the weight of the decision heavy on my shoulders. For now, we'll stick to the supervised visits. If you prove that you can be consistent and reliable, we can discuss expanding your time with them. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Thank you, Michael. I promise I won't let them down. As she left, I felt a flicker of hope, tempered by caution. Emily's remorse seemed genuine, but the scars of her betrayal ran deep. I had to protect Lily and Ben, even if it meant taking things slow. In the following weeks, Emily's visits continued, each one supervised and carefully monitored. She was patient, understanding the boundaries I had set, and the children slowly began to open up to her. One evening, after a particularly successful visit, Lily approached me. "Dad, can we talk?" "Of course, sweetheart," I said, sitting down with her on the couch. "What's on your mind?" "It's about Mom," she began, her voice hesitant. "She's been really nice lately. Do you think she really wants to change?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "I think she does, Lily. She's trying to show us that she wants to be better. But it's important to take things one step at a time." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "I miss her, Dad. I miss how things used to be." I hugged her tightly, my heart aching for her. "I know, sweetie. I miss that too. But remember, we have to focus on what's best for you and Ben." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and sadness. "Do you think we can ever be a family again?" I sighed, feeling the weight of her question. "I don't know, Lily, but we'll take it one day at a time and see where it leads us." As I tucked her into bed that night, I felt a renewed sense of determination. Bridging the gap between the past and the present was a delicate process, one that required patience and caution. Emily's remorse was a step in the right direction, but it would take time to rebuild the trust she had broken. The next few months saw gradual progress. Emily continued to show consistency in her visits, and the children began to relax in her presence. They laughed more, their initial wariness slowly dissolving. One afternoon, as Emily was leaving, she turned to me. "Michael, I wanted to say thank you for giving me this chance." I nodded, the cautious optimism in my heart reflected in my eyes. "It's for the kids, Emily. They deserve to have both parents in their lives, as long as it's safe and healthy for them." She smiled, a genuine warmth in her expression. "I understand, and I won't let them down again." As she walked away, I felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead was still uncertain, but the steps we were taking gave me confidence that, together, we could find a way to bridge the gap and create a new sense of stability and peace for our children. The summer sun bathed our backyard in a golden glow as I watched Lily and Ben play with Sarah. Their laughter filled the air, a sound that had become more frequent and more cherished. Sarah had become an integral part of our lives, her presence a source of comfort and joy. My relationship with her had deepened, and it was through her support that I found the strength to move forward. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I turned to Sarah. "I can't thank you enough for everything you've done. You've been my rock through all of this." Sarah smiled, her hand resting on mine. "You've done the hard work, Michael. I've just been here to help. I'm so proud of how far you've come." I looked out at the yard, the children still playing, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. I never imagined we'd get to this point. There were times I didn't think I'd make it through. "You did," Sarah said softly, "and you're building a beautiful life for yourself and your kids. You deserve to be happy." The path to this new beginning had been arduous, filled with moments of doubt and pain. But as I reflected on the journey, I realized how much I had grown. I had learned the importance of resilience, of facing challenges head-on, and of finding strength in the support of those who care. One day, as Emily arrived for another supervised visit, I noticed a change in her demeanor. She seemed more relaxed, more at peace. The tension that had once defined our interactions was slowly giving way to a cautious understanding. "Hi, Michael," she said, offering a tentative smile. "How have things been?" "Good," I replied, nodding. "The kids are doing well. They're looking forward to spending time with you." She glanced at Sarah, who was helping Ben with his homework. "I see Sarah's been a big help." "She has," I said, a hint of pride in my voice. "She's been amazing with the kids." Emily's smile wavered for a moment, then steadied. "I'm glad. They deserve all the love and support they can get." As Emily spent time with Lily and Ben, I reflected on how much things had changed. There was still a long way to go, but the steps we had taken were promising. Emily's genuine remorse and efforts to reconnect with the children were slowly rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. That evening, after Emily left, Sarah and I sat down to talk. "Emily seems different," she observed. "More sincere." I nodded. "She is. It's been a long process, but I think she's finally starting to understand the impact of her actions." Sarah squeezed my hand. "That's a good sign. It's important for the kids to see their parents working together, even if it's not in the way we originally planned." I smiled, feeling a sense of hope. "You're right. We're creating a new normal, and it's better than I ever imagined it could be." As the weeks turned into months, my relationship with Sarah continued to grow. We shared our dreams and fears, our hopes and challenges. She became not just a partner, but a confidant, someone I could rely on no matter what. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Sarah turned to me, her eyes filled with love. "Michael, I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'll always be here for you and the kids. We're a family now." Tears welled in my eyes as I pulled her close. "I love you, Sarah. I can't imagine my life without you." "I love you too," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Our new beginning was not without its challenges, but it was filled with promise. Together, we navigated the complexities of co-parenting with Emily, ensuring that Lily and Ben felt loved and supported by both of their parents. Emily continued to show genuine remorse, and her relationship with the children grew stronger each day. One afternoon, as we all gathered for a family picnic, I watched Lily and Ben laugh and play, their happiness a testament to the progress we had made. Emily and Sarah chatted amicably, their shared concern for the children's well-being creating a bond that I had never thought possible. As the sun set and the sky turned shades of pink and orange, I felt a deep sense of contentment. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had led to a place of peace and hope. That night, as I tucked Lily and Ben into bed, Lily looked up at me with a smile. "Dad, I'm really happy. I love our family." I kissed her forehead, my heart swelling with pride. "I love you too, Lily, and I'm so proud of you and Ben." In the quiet of the evening, I sat with Sarah on the porch, reflecting on the journey we had taken. "We've come a long way," I said, my voice filled with gratitude. Sarah nodded, her hand in mine. "We have, and we'll keep moving forward together." As I looked out at the stars, I felt a deep sense of peace. Our new beginning was not just a fresh start, but a testament to the strength of love, resilience, and the power of hope. And with Sarah by my side, I knew that whatever the future held, we would face it together as a family.